All right, so bam. We hit three buttons there. Hey guys, welcome. There we go. Got the screen on the wrong one. All right, guys. So welcome to my normal thing. This is my thing, the interview with my friends. I tell you that the reason why I started doing all this in Jordan, the whole idea behind doing these interviews was one of the things I started watching during the times of COVID, and I think we could label that historically now. Um, was that we started looking for thought leaders to be able to give us the great next thing to do. Like, what's this great next kind of conversation to have, this great next idea? And the beautiful thing about what I know historically about my own life is that the most important things that I can put into my like memory as the moments that changed things for me, it all happened in these little tiny moments with my friends, with my family, with like we would say like the best advice I ever got was from a teacher who said, "You can't change the world, you can only change yourself." And but if you change yourself, the chances are you're going to change the world. It's like those little things that kind of stick with us. And so I was like, I want to start interviewing my friends who, one, I think are brilliant, and just see what kind of wisdom pops out of the conversations. And so, guys, this is Jordan Davis, and she's absolutely lovely, wonderful. Her family's wonderful. We have grown a great affinity, I think, a mutual affinity, just because of like, man, like life. There's just some commons like I don't know how to put it into words, but I'm grateful that our paths cross, and I think we have a lot of the same mentality around goals and desires and stuff. And so this is Jordan. Jordan, I don't know if you want to like give us a quick little like this is who I am by your own words versus my stuttering.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, Randy, because I think we're diving into not just real estate, but personal and leadership and things like that. So I don't typically go a whole lot into like personal, but if you want to know who I am and you're not asking just about real estate numbers, I was born and raised in Bethany, Oklahoma. Went to school at Texas. Well, first I went to school at Southern Nazarene University. I redshirted for volleyball and really wanted to play volleyball. I realized volleyball was not what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I transferred to A&M, Texas A&M, followed a boy. It was not my husband. Um, but shortly after that breakup, I actually met my husband, and we knew probably from the second date that we were going to spend the rest of our lives together, and we just couldn't wait to get it started. So my husband Matt and I have two boys. We actually moved to Florida before we had kids because there was an opportunity for Matt and his job for a great opportunity for him. So we said, why not? Let's do it. Moved to Florida. Then when we got pregnant with our son Aiden, we moved back to DFW where my dad and stepmom were living, and my grandparents. I had not been from here at all, and started a life. I tried to be a stay-at-home mom for a year. That was a total failure. And I really wanted to get back in the workforce and something that I felt like I could control my income and control my schedule. And I just outperformed bosses in my past and been like held down by their ceiling. And so I got into real estate, and I guess the rest is history. So I have two boys, Aiden and Carson. They are 8 and 5, and they're absolutely my light and my world. Something weird about me, I actually live with my parents. We have a house that is two houses in one. And so my dad and stepmom live with us, which is kind of fun. They have like their whole own kitchen, living room, everything. But my boys just run back and forth and can see their grandparents anytime they want, which is cool.
So it's funny. I was gonna eventually go there in conversation because I think it's crazy. Like, I love anybody who does anything non-traditional just for the sake of like, no, this is what I'm doing, and this is who I am. This is what I'm going for. And like, it's incredibly non-traditional to like go, all right, we're gonna buy this massive house, but only because half of it's gonna house my the family, like grandparents, the kids' grandparents are gonna live here. Like, we're gonna be living with. People, I guess people do that, but that's just usually not your first thought. Absolutely, probably not your first thought. What was going through your head when you were looking at this, like, because it is a dreamy property, and you was like, the way this makes sense is A, B, and C. Like, how did that even get going?
Well, first I want to go back to I like that you said anybody who does something outside the box, because Randy, when I first met you, I am an empath, so I like feel people's vibes, and your vibe was so high energy. Think outside the box. I don't live in anybody's world. Like, this is my world. Welcome to the show. And I think that's one of the things that I just was like instantly, like, our souls bonded. I was like, I like this guy's vibe.
Well, I
So
appreciate that. Thank you.
that's funny that you would say that, because I would describe you very much the same. Just,
Wow.
I'm not going to march to the beat of what everybody else says the drum should be. This is what I'm doing. But yeah, I've always been that way. I've never really said. So I got married at 22. Everybody says that's too young. I don't care. And yeah, so we've always kind of marched to the beat of our own drum. So as far as the dual house, we always talked about living together, whether it be next door to each other or a house that had two masters. We were okay with it. I didn't grow up with my dad. My parents divorced when I was 3. And in college, my dad and I got very, very close. I went through a bout of depression in college. I think that's what they don't, there's like not the same achievement as you have in high school. I wasn't as active in volleyball, and I just really kind of lost myself. And my dad and I got really close. But I didn't necessarily grow up with him. I spent every other weekend with him and a couple weeks during the summer. But he was kind of a stranger to me. And so when we moved back and I had gotten really close and my dad was my best friend, like, I just thought, wow, this is really kind of a second chance at that relationship. So my stepmom was our nanny. She didn't have kids for herself. She and my dad reunited at their maybe 30-year reunion, and I guess maybe it was 20-year reunion. And my dad was like, I need another kid, like, I need a hole in my head. If you want kids, like, we probably shouldn't, date or anything. But Debbie was like, cool, that's fine. The kid thing has passed for me, no big deal. And she inherited a middle schooler and 2 high schoolers. Well, then when we moved back and we were pregnant and brought Aiden into the world, it was like a whole new thing for her, experiencing parenthood, being that close. So I just wanted to give that gift to my children and give that gift to my parents, that we would all grow up together. And so we started looking at homes, and at first we were looking at, kind of thinking, well, a little bit more than we currently have. But then when we sat down and looked at the numbers, I looked at what could I sell my dad's house for and what could we sell our house for. The number was 725. And so there was a home, kind of a weird story. There was a home that had been on the market 2 years. They had just reduced to 800,000. I offered 725 and they accepted. The bizarre thing though, Randy, is that the girl who had it listed worked at Keller Williams. She no longer did. It was her very first listing, and she found me in my office and asked me to help write that listing agreement. And I said, oh, at 900,000, this is going to be on the market for years. And she actually reminded me of that. You helped me write this listing and input it into MLS, the listing that we eventually bought.
Wow, that's crazy. So there's so many great little small stories that I guarantee are happening inside of that. One of the things that I'm incredibly like just drawn to you and your family about is like your family values are I think, at least from my perspective, off the charts. And so I think it's just really awesome. When I look at Ellen and I, when we bought our house, like, I could throw a rock and hit her brother. Like, so her brother lives like I don't have to do I could crawl to their house if necessary. Like, it's literally that close. Well, her younger brother just contracted on a house now that's the equidistance from us, but like on the other side. So now like she's like her 3 siblings. Mom lives down the road, maybe 5 minutes to get to her house, and so like I understand like just like the excitement of having family together is a really important piece of the puzzle, and I think that's huge. You do a lot to protect your family because like here's the deal. I want to make sure and kind of go back to your introduction, which was a wonderful thing, and yet you are one of the strongest female presences I have ever been around, and I love that. I want Willow to see people like you, my little girl. I want her to see women like you who are like, no, I can be strong, I can be loving, I can take care of my own. It's like the Empire Builders podcast. If y'all aren't watching that, paying attention to that, watching it, podcast, listen to me. If you're not listening to that, listen to that. These are strong women who are like fighting the good fight of like, I can be a CEO, I can be a strong woman, I can be a loving mother, I can care, I can nurture, I can do all that. You are the embodiment of all of that. So when I look at that, that's a tough thing to balance, being a strong CEO of a company and being a strong, caring mother. Where do you find balance? How do you find balance?
What is balance?
Yeah, there you go. Counterbalance. How about that? We'll go with Gary and Jay. We'll go counterbalance.
So, I mean, obviously living with our caretaker nanny, Debbie, helps. She comes over every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. So Matt also works a job where he makes multi six figures and is on demand all the time.
Yeah.
And he flies. Sometimes we would like pass in the air. Oftentimes he would be in Houston and I'd be on my way to Houston and we would pass each other in the air, or we've even seen each other at the airport with him leaving and me coming to a city. So yeah, having Debbie there is a godsend, and I literally never have to leave directions for the nanny, never have to anything like that. When the boys got into so we have a couple tricks. Like when the boys got into school, they both were in school, Debbie started doing our grocery shopping and our laundry. So that's phenomenal to have all that taken care of in one. But leveraging that has been incredible. How do I balance? I think the first thing I had to do was give myself permission that I wasn't cut out to be a stay-at-home mom, which I always thought I would be. And here's the thing.
No, hey, I'm going to pause you. That's strong. Like, and that's super strong. There's almost a judgment of moms. Like, and I'm just being honest. Like, and I'm a man, so obviously I only look at it from the outside in. But there's almost this judgment of moms that like, what do you mean you can't be a stay-at-home mom? It's like, no, like that doesn't make you any less of a wonderful mother.
I think it makes me a better mom because my kids deserve a happy version of me, and somebody who can't have that kind of achievement. And in some ways it's a little bit selfish, but that achievement is what I selfishly need to be a happy version of myself. And my kids deserve that, whatever that function is. If that is being a stay-at-home mom and I'm great at that, or you're great at that, be that, and your kids deserve that. If you have to make sacrifices to do that, I 100% support you. And if a happy version of yourself is working and achieving and slaying the day and then coming home and being happy, do that. And I 100% support that. And I will rally for you. Whatever that is that makes you the happiest version of yourself is honestly what your children deserve. And it took bold for me to come to terms and give myself permission to be that mom.
Yeah. Now, for those who may not understand, like, I want to kind of make sure BOLD is a coaching program that is like kind of this 8-week deal that people can go to. It's a very much a mindset mixed with business model, and it's specifically from built for kind of real estate agents. But yeah, gosh, I've watched a lot of people go through BOLD and come out of the other end going like, I deserve a life by design, which is really kind of what it stands for. And I say that all the time. So want to make sure people understand they can connect to that. So.
Yep. And I mean, if you look at it, we really do live a life by design. Moved in with grandparents. We have everything that we want and need, and the ideal way that we want to raise our children. We're very intentional. I heard a quote the other day that consistency is the cost of everything you say you want. And
do that again. Consistency.
Yeah, I heard this on a TCU their baseball program does these YouTube videos that are incredible. They're inspirational.
Okay.
And it said, consistency is the cost of everything you say you want.
I love
or you
that.
can say
That's
the
awesome.
currency of everything you say you want. So we're just very intentional, and BOLD teaches that is how do you live a life by design, and consistency is a lot of that. Every single night, our kids don't miss their affirmations. We say them every single night with them. And so every night they say, I'm a smart, brave boy, I work hard, and I never give up, and I'm going to do great things. And so we just embed that in their heads because that's who I want them to be. That's who we intend for them to be. So we repeat that every day to them. They repeat every day.
I love that. We do affirmations, and it's not as beautiful as yours. It'll get there, but we give them the opportunity to do their affirmations and all that stuff. And so Adam got to the point where we kind of just let them see like what would naturally come out. It's like, okay, affirmations for mom, affirmations for dad, affirmations for sister.
Yeah.
So Willow loves to sing, and so one of her songs is "I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart." So what she says is like, "Mom, you are good down, down, down in your heart, and Dad, you're a good." And it's like, so it's just on repeat cycle. So we're trying to get to that point of like allowing them to express like what is it about them that you love? What is it about them that you like? So I love that you give them affirmations. I think it's really awesome.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you how ours continue to progress as we listen. Sometimes it's really funny. The other day, Mom, you're really good at dishes and smoothies, which she makes them a
Oh,
smoothie every morning. And she's like, oh, thanks. And it's like, Dad, you're good at fun and playing. It's like, all right, Dad. Yeah, so it's always interesting to see what the dad gets credit for with the mom's like, hello, hello.
yeah.
So it's always fun
Well,
in our house.
one of the things that I will say in regards to that and the working mom thing is that Matt is so good about telling the boys, go give mommy a hug. She's going to go out and go on a listing appointment to make money for the family. And they're like, thank you, mommy, for making money for the family. Like, and so it's not like, oh, mom has to be gone again. Um, and he also like he just affirms that a
Yeah.
lot, and reminds them what to be grateful for, or how that looks, because he does. So during COVID, he's working from home, so that's actually driving him crazy. But he's working from home 24/7, so Dad's there always, and I'm not. And so yeah, it's just been really interesting, and he's phenomenal at that. I give Matt all that credit for being just a godsend and reiterating to our kids like, mommy works hard for the family and loves
Yeah.
you very much.
So okay, so you've mentioned money a couple of times, and I want to I really want to dig into that a little bit. My goal is to go in this direction with you because you have given so much of yourself to. This is going to be somewhat of a mixture of a real estate conversation, but
Okay.
you've given so much of yourself, volunteering your time to come in and speak to our agents about wealth building and what's possible through wealth building. And so I know about you and your desire and your goals for that, but I want to know what is it about the wealth building side of things? Because that fire has it started out as this little tiny spark from when we first met, and it has grown into a raging fire, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Your desire, your goal for wealth building, it's so selfless, and I love that you speak about it so loud and so proud, because I think we've, as a culture, equated money with if you want money, then you've got something wrong with who you are. It's like, no, money is a fantastic tool to be able to produce the things that you desire. So I would love for you to open up the door about some of the wealth building. I don't know kind of the first question I would go down, but where did this really get brewing inside of you, watching the opportunities that you had to build wealth for your family and the legacy that you can build through it?
Well, if I have permission to go deep and potentially cry, I've held back tears once already talking about the boys and their affirmations, but it's really not a training or a one-on-one with Jordan unless she cries. The whole team thinks it's hilarious.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. So I grew up without money. My parents got divorced at 3 when I was 3, and were single. I mean, they were married for a couple years too. I had stepdads and a stepmom, or I had stepdad and a stepmom, and then they divorced shortly after. And I mean, divorces are horrid on finances. So we grew up without a lot. At one point, my dad was foreclosed on, lost his home. When my mom left him, the church, he was a pastor, and the church said, if your wife left you, you must have done something. So they also asked him to leave. And so my dad lost his family and his job overnight, and eventually foreclosed on his house. At one point, he was renting in a place, and we had a roommate, just some weird guy that lived in the back of the house. So we did a lot to get by. And money was always an issue for us. My parents would fight over our medical bills. So first of all, I would try not to go get any dental work done or have to go to the doctor for like not feeling well. And then when I did, the bill would come home and my mom would say, this isn't covered in your dad's child support. And my dad would say, yes, it is. And so I would hide the bills in my suitcase when I went to my dad's because I didn't want to give it to him too early in the weekend because it would ruin the weekend. And so I would hide it, but then I would forget about it. And then Sunday I would open up my suitcase at mom's and I would find that bill still there. And I would know she would get mad that my dad didn't send a check home with me, but it was me who was hiding it all along. So I just grew up with a lot of anxiety around money and decided early on I wasn't going to let money limit my life. And I wasn't going to let money limit the lives of those around me. I learned so much through Keller Williams, and I'm eternally grateful. One of my big goals is OP of a market center. The reason being that I see the market center as the protector of the Keller Williams culture and the culture they've given me and what they've taught me about money and how to handle money, what to do with my money, how to multiply money, how to hire, how to leverage, how to grow my people, love on my people, help them get what they want. It's just the most incredible ecosystem I've ever experienced, and I want to be the protector of that culture. And to me, OP is the ultimate way to do that. So we've said about Matt grew up the same. He grew up in a trailer home. When we first enrolled our kid, Aiden, for kindergarten, they asked for money for lunches, and Matt was like, I don't understand. Lunches are free at school. And I was like, no, honey, you were just that poor.
That's awesome. I could attest
Yeah.
to that one. I love that.
Yeah. So Matt had anxiety around money too. His mom would borrow money to keep the lights on. He got a hardship license to work at 14. We just were hard workers and a little bit of anxiety around not having money. So he started saving at 19 and investing at 19, 20, 21. And we've been on that track ever since. So anytime somebody talks about wealth and wealth building and doing more, having more, acquiring more, things like that, like our ears perk up and we listen.
Yeah.
So we did Dave Ramsey and never got into debt because we did Dave Ramsey very early on. So we avoided that. I used to tell Matt that we were the poorest people that made the amount of money that I've ever seen because he socked it all away, right?
Yeah.
At one point, I wanted to go on a vacation after we'd been married a year, and Matt kept saying no, that it was too expensive. And so his dad called, or I ratted him out to his dad at like a family something. And his dad was like, son, a vacation's less expensive than a divorce. Take your wife on vacation.
That might be the nugget that everybody needs to take away. A vacation is less expensive than a divorce. Take your wife on a vacation.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's about balance, right?
Yeah.
And just like with everything with parenting and running a business, it's about balance. And so it is about growing your wealth, and it is about helping those around you rise up and have opportunities they wouldn't have. But it's also about enjoying your life, because if you're dead tomorrow, then what did you build that for, right? And so you've got to have a balance, and I think that's what Matt's dad taught us in that moment.
Yeah.
But it's been really fun. It's been really fun growing a business that could provide for other people in our world. I didn't really have a big why before starting a team, but I brought on our transaction coordinator. He's been with us 4 years, is actually my stepdad. So if you're counting, I employed both of my step-parents.
There you go.
Yeah. And he was retired and was really going through depression with retirement. And my mom is 11 years younger and still working. And so Charles was on the struggle bus with that. I called and said, hey, I need a transaction coordinator. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how many hours it'll be. And he's like, great. When can I start? And I said, well, do you care about what you get paid? And he's like, no, not really. I said, do you need to talk to mom about what you're going to do? He said, no, not really. When can I start? So I drove to Oklahoma City after, it was actually a class with Wendy Papazon where she gave me the permission I needed to make that hire, because I didn't know when do you have enough? When is your business big enough? And what Wendy said was, if you can go make more money because you're not doing activities that you can pay somebody less money to do, and you can go make more, then that's leverage. Or if you just spend more time with your family because that's leverage.
Yeah.
So I drove straight from New Orleans, that family reunion 4 or 5 years ago, and I drove straight to Oklahoma City. So New Orleans, spent the night in Dallas, went straight to Oklahoma City the next day and hired Charles. Um,
Nice.
and Charles just wanted more and more hours, and I found myself going and finding more and more deals so that I could give him more hours. Not necessarily for
Yeah.
me, but it was about him, and that was really where my why was born. I'm just absolutely obsessed with the people that work on my team. I have a coach. I have two coaches, and one of my coaches, we talk about our team and internal, and how do I get to them, and how do I coach them through this, and where are we at. And so he helps support from like an HR standpoint or life coach standpoint on how do I be enough to them to stay just a step ahead of them. And Ben Kinney. We just joined Ben Kinney. His
You're
team.
beating me to all my great questions that I have. I love. No. This is perfect. I love this. Like, because I was gonna say, like, now let's take that whole passion, that desire, like, and here's what I know about you, and I'm gonna put words in your mouth, but that everything that you do, if it involves money, you do look at it as a tool, but the tool is for relationship. Every single thing that you do around money has to do with the relationship, and that I think is one of the biggest fears that people, when they look at building wealth, is that like there's something about the collecting of wealth.
It feels
Wealth
selfish,
is not about
right?
collecting; it's about the giving side of it. That's so strong. And then I was going to transition to like, gosh, and even looking at who you've partnered with now, like in your world, like just one of the things I know about Ben Kinney, and I don't know Ben Kinney. Like I would pass him and I would say hi, and he'd be like hi, and it would be weird. But it would be like he becomes a student of the things that he wants to be better at,
Yep.
and then he gives it away.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, I remember listening, he was talking to Gary Keller on a family reunion panel, and Gary's like, what's next for you? And he goes, I just want to know everything there is. I want to be better than Warren. I'm putting words in his mouth now, but he said, he made the illusion of, like, I want to be better than Warren Buffett at understanding money and economics. And then I want to share it with the world.
Yeah.
And holy cow, if it's not 3 or 4 years later and he's doing that at a very, very high level. So yeah, so now you've adjusted your world, and now you've partnered into the I mean, can I give like Place? Can I say that? I just did. Yeah, cool, awesome. You're partnered with Place and Ben Kinney, Chris Suarez, those two guys.
Yeah, well,
I
was
hope
the
they
first one
continue to
come
give.
on when Ben and Chris merged. So I guess Ben and Chris had a baby, and she's blonde. I guess that's
Love it. There you go. Perfect.
But yeah, I just was in total alignment with Ben and where he came from, and he went through a period of homelessness. His dad not eating so he could eat, things of that nature. So far more extreme than what we went through, and yet his heart was the same. And I found myself in total alignment with Ben, and that's when I decided, you know what, this is a great business partnership to take on.
Yeah.
Also, I met with his CEO, Ross, and basically he took my P&L and showed me how they would reduce my expenses in such a way that I would make the same amount of money but have all the tools of Place in partnering with them. And I thought that was really incredible. So we partnered in February, and it was family reunion, and then COVID hit, and so here we are, and it's been a fun ride. Typically we get together more, the expansion partners get together more, but we've been a little bit limited this year. So Ben taught a wealth series, and I just grabbed hold of that, and he did 8 lessons, did the homework, took it, taught it to the team, or they did it while I was going through it, and we just discussed it at our team huddle. So instilling in them, what does that look like for you guys? What does retirement look like for you guys? How can I help with that? What are some resources for that? And how do we build this together? And that wealth series had worksheets and workbooks for us to go over. And we worked through it together. 3 of my admins actually finished it. The rest of the team was a little bit behind, didn't do the homework, whatever the case may be. And they were perfectly honest about that. So I actually was the grand prize winner. Ben randomly drew my number.
Yeah, we watched that happen, and Ellen goes, "Oh my gosh, Randy! Jordan won the drawing." I was like, "Oh, of course."
Who said that?
Ellen, because Ellen's been, yeah, because you. So Ellen was curious about something you posted. She asked, and you're like, "Yeah, you need to do this," and she immediately got signed up, and she's been working through it. We still need to work through the rest of it, right? Because it like, dude, like I trust. I trust what he's doing, and I obviously trust you, and so just to kind of turn us on to that, because we've been really big about figuring out where our wealth conversation happens as well. So, so saw that you won that. Yeah, we watched.
And so I just said, hey, to my team who finished the series and completed it. And those 3 said, I did. And I said, great, I'm going to share my earnings with you.
Oh, I love that.
So that was really cool. I haven't been very public about that, but it was just really cool to be like, hey, you guys learned these tools. Like, here's a little bit of nest money to get started, right? And so that's really exciting. But essentially what I posted, Randy, that Ellen caught on to was, if I put away $500 a month, and for 30 years, I will have, it was something like $2.5 million by the end of it. I have to look up Ben's chart.
Yeah.
Or if I put $1,000 one time into the boys' accounts, by the time they're 73, they'll each have $1 million.
Yeah.
And it was like, and never touch it again. Put $1,000 in today, don't ever touch it again, into an S&P fund that gets about a 10% return. It's like 9.8% return. They'll have $1 million at 73. That's life-changing.
Gosh, and here's the thing that I love about you, and why your conversations keep getting bigger and bigger about wealth, and why I'm drawn to listen to things like, I think as you discover it, you get excited about it, you understand how to simplify it, and then you give it away. And you give away the simplicity of wealth building to people who didn't understand. Like, I can't even tell you how many people would sit and listen to the classes. Being a real estate professional, you do have some leverage in building equity in your potential like investment properties. And so just even bringing that, like, you went through it, you figured it out, and you're like, wait a second, everybody needs to know this. Why doesn't anybody know this? And you just give it away. And I think it's the most beautiful thing about all of it. And I think why you will always have a platform, in my opinion, I think you will always have a platform to talk about wealth building, because you don't talk about it in a way that, like, how can I collect more? You talk about a way in which you can, like, how can I give away everything? And I think you'd be willing, like, I would bet that you would be willing to, if the right situation presented itself, to give it all away and start over. Like, you're not attached to it. You understand its use as a tool. You understand its use to be able to enlighten people. Like, and you know, in all honesty, one of the ways I might be attracted to your conversation about wealth building is the fact that, like, my story kind of runs true in the same vein. Like, I'm from the same system. I'm from the same conversation. Terrible decisions with money brought all those terrible decisions into our marriage. And, like, to be 100% frank, it was not until 2018 that we go, hey, we're idiots. Like, now, so obviously, like, I'm 36 years old. It's really difficult to start talking about wealth at 36, and yet it's still not too late. There's never too late. And what we were able to do in 1 year to get rid of all of our debt except for our mortgage was phenomenal, because we just put a plan to it. And I think that's one of the things that's really awesome about what you do, is you simplify it and help people understand the plan that they can put in place to be able to build equity into their life, to build wealth into their life, and ultimately to share it.
Yeah. And we started this conversation with that class, right, Randy, where you find somebody who wants to sell their home, get out from under it for whatever reason. They're looking for investors. And with a real estate license, you can go in and charge whatever you want in commission. With your license, you can put your commission to down payment. So, you know, obviously we would have to dive into this on a whiteboard, but finding a home, writing it at what you think it will appraise for, charging 20% commission and putting that commission towards your down payment, if that's what the seller wants to net, and that would give them a great life and help them in what they're doing next. I had a pastor who had been fired from a church. He was embarrassed. I had somebody that was like a month away from foreclosing. So those were the 2 properties that we picked up last year, and they were willing to give up 20% equity. They were ready to give it to Open Door, any of the other OfferPad, whatever. And I just said, because we were already in conversation about listing, I'll take that. I'll do that for you. And so we were able to pick up 2 properties last year with 20% equity.
And one of the properties, like, because I want, like, it's just not, like, you're just such a solution-based person. And correct the story, but I'm going to recant it. Is like, one of the deals is that, like, you had one of your clients, one of your consumers that was like in dire straits for their scenario, and you purchased it as an investment and rented it back to them so they didn't lose everything. They were on their way to losing everything.
Yeah.
And you helped them to have something stable. You gave them stability.
Yeah, so we closed on it, saved it from the bank, taking it, let them rent it, get on their feet, find something, and then, move on to what they needed.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a win situation for all of us, and help them. And also they didn't have, it's a different story to tell your kids I sold the home versus I lost the home, right?
Yeah.
And I know they gave up some equity in doing that, but they also kept a lot of equity.
Right.
Thing.
Well, and here's the thing, and I think it goes to say within any of it. I know that from time to time, because of the barrier of entry into real estate is very low, that you are going to have real estate agents that are very much snakes. Like, and I'm a real estate agent. Hopefully, I don't get ethics conversations because I called some real estate agents snakes. But there are some. They're in the grass.
Yeah. They're not at KW. They're just out there otherwise.
Yeah, right. and the thing of it is, though, is that when you have a real estate agent who is a true advocate, which is what I always talk about, it's like, get sales professional, you're an advocate. If you have a true advocate, if somebody's in a foreclosure scenario, you can help them find the ability to get the equity out of their home before they lose all of it.
Well,
right?
And for that one story, Randy, we have 6 stories from last year that somebody wanted our offer, but they still wanted to go on the market. And we got the home sold and netted them more money. And I was happy to do that as opposed to me ending up with it because it got them what they needed.
Well, it's the options of everything. Like, and here's the deal. I think we want to be doctors as real estate agents. We want to be the one that comes in. We diagnose your problem, we stitch it up, we fix it, we give you your prescription, and you go on your way. And like, hey, look at me, I'm such a great professional. Man, the way I look at it is that, like, what you've done is you've hired me to tell you all sides of the story, to help you understand exactly how it fits into your world and allow you to make the best decision for you and your family. Mm-hmm. I'm nothing more than a sage in the process of creating a hero story for you. That's it. And so I think you embody that in everything you do. So now, okay, so I mean, we're moving into the 37-minute mark. I want to make sure that we, I definitely want to cover family values because you're such a family-oriented person. Like, I love watching, like, you and Matt and what you guys do. It's just fun. I know that, like, obviously the wealth building side of things. The other thing that I wanted to make sure is just like, you are a huge advocate for, when you going back to that consistency conversation of like creating systems in your life that allow you to be the best version of you. And you alluded to some of this stuff. So when you look at that, if somebody was listening to this, what would be your encouragement to them to say, like, systems are difficult and habits are strenuous to get into place, yet here's what I would start with to help make that easier. Well, here's the first step. Here's the next thing you should do. I mean, I'm throwing you like right under the bus with this question with no foresight to answer it, but my guess is it's going to be brilliant, whatever comes out of the other end.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a DI, and I think it's important to note that I have a lot of systems in my life, and I'm not a personality type that usually accepts systems, right? Or even is interested in them. I like to live every day's a new day. Everything's different. Like, intrinsically, that is who I am. And yet there's so many people depending on me delivering and doing what I said I would do and being accountable that, I have to courageously accept the monotony of systems and weekly accountability and structure. And to me, structure does take courage. I'm not a structure-oriented person. So putting systems and measurements and coaches in my life, again, I said I have 2 coaches. One is a production coach. One is a running a team coach. So putting those systems in place and those people in my life to be the best version of me, because I have to be. I've surrounded myself with talent. And the thing about talent is if they feel like you're not at your best, they won't just not perform at their best. That's B talent. A talent will leave you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've surrounded myself by with incredible people
Yeah.
that if I'm not delivering and I just take some time off, and not time off like a vacation, but I
Yeah.
just decide, I'm not going to be the best version of myself. I'm going to take a break. They're going to bounce. I've made some big promises to them. And part of the wealth building and the ownership of market centers that we talk about and dream about is talked about within my core team. And they understand, like I hired Leah Reel, who was a real estate agent for 5 years before joining as our director of operations. She's on board working 50 hours a week for us to go take on market centers and what else can we do together. So she knows she's in it and she's going to have a piece of the pie. And so that requires that I be at my best and that that I'm courageous enough to get into systems and structure that's needed for success. So I think it's about getting coaches to set you up on a plan that you can achieve success, and then just to hold you accountable to doing what you said you wanted. Because again, like that quote, that consistency is, the cost or the price or the currency of everything you say you want. It's just about being consistent. And it's wild how when you are consistent and you do just a little bit, you're actually heads above all the other realtors.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. I tell everybody that gets into the business, I'm like, the last thing you need to be is an expert. The first thing you need to be is consistent. Everybody wants to be an expert first. It's like, no, just get consistent first. Like, consistency is king. Well, I love that you put the words of courage into the idea of creating structure in your life, because it, like, the con of man is the path of least resistance. That's just true. Like, if you wanted to know what I want to do, and people think that I'm like a 12-hour a day, like drinking 12 pots of coffee, which I am. But like, if you let me be me, I'm sitting down and watching all the National Treasure movies, and then I'm going to go through all the Fast and the Furious. I might even throw in there a couple of like random stupid comedies that nobody likes except for me. But like that's me. Or I'm gonna play Zelda. Like, I'll pull out my Nintendo and I'm gonna play Zelda. Like, if you let me just be Randy, I'm gonna be absolutely the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And it does take courage, because like the idea of courage is this strength and it's this overcoming. Like, it's a daily overcoming of myself to be the best version of me.
Yeah.
So I love that. Like, take courage in who you are. I love so Gary Keller, and I'm a big fan of obviously the Keller Williams system also. But Gary Keller, he's like, man, you should be the most boring person. Like, and I usually get up at about 4:45. From 4:45 to 8 o'clock, I am literally the most boring person in the world. Like, if you wanted to find me, like, I could, I will send you the schedule and you could easily like map it out and see, like, it's monotonous.
Yeah.
But the thing for me is a little bit different. I miss the opportunity to be creative, which that fills my soul. The creativity of life fills my soul. I miss the opportunity to be creative if I've got my brain filled with like, what do I need to do next, versus allowing it just to run as a system.
Yeah.
So, well.
Although I feel like when you bring people in and you're coaching them, you get that opportunity to be creative because you're like solving problems all day long, right?
Yeah, it's so much fun. Well, so I want to make sure and honor time, and I want to see, like, so my audience isn't huge, but I do want to make sure anybody that's a sacrifice of your time to come in, so anything I could do, the best thing that I could do is just give you the obviously the space to be able to, is there a cause that you're about? Is there like some sort of announcements you make? Is there something in your world that you would love, like, okay, since I have an audience, I want to be able to express myself towards, like, again, like, it could be anything from a nonprofit to just something that you've learned in your life, but the stage is yours, potpourri, whatever you want to be able to toss out to the world.
Yeah, I just, I would say that the concept that I learned that you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, when I looked around at who I spend most of my time with, I was like, man, I got to get a new 5. And that sounds horrible. That's not to say that I'm not friends with the people that I was friends with before. That's not the case at all. In fact, I just realized, who am I letting control my thoughts and influence who I become? Because I am going to influence who my children become or who the people on my team become. So it's really important that I control who is influencing my thoughts.
Yeah.
And I just looked around and I switched out my 5 and I surrounded myself with higher level thinkers and I asked them, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? I realized I was kind of the little sister, like trotting along, until I really became the average of those 5. And then I went and found a new 5 because then I was above average to those 5, right? So I went and found a new 5. And I'm constantly looking at who is pouring into me, and you know, your thoughts, you can control your thoughts, and you're controlling your thoughts is going to control your actions and who you become and who you influence and how you're influencing them. So, you know, one of the early, I would say early, probably 3 years ago, Randy, you and I met because you were with the Loken group.
Yeah.
Lance Loken was one of the people that I surrounded myself with when I knew I needed systems and that discipline in my life. And he just blew my mind in the way that he thought and processed things and how big he thought.
Yeah.
And so that was the one person that I feel like I need to give a shout out to. You know, Ben being, you know, a new person in my life, and without knowing it, he was contributing to it because I would listen to podcasts or YouTube videos or whatever of him. But just be really conscious about who is in your life, because as much as you're affecting and influencing them, they're also affecting and influencing you. And if there's negativity in your life, I talked to a guy a few months ago at the beginning of COVID who was living with his in-laws, and his father-in-law was really, really a negative influence in his life. And it was too much to overcome. And it was like, okay, let's come up with a game plan. How are you going to get out of this situation? And how are you going to limit your time with him? So it's really important who you surround yourself with. And if you find that you look up and you realize you don't want to be the 5 people you're spending the most time with, then this is the permission that you need to go find the new 5, right? If you're waiting for that permission, it's like if you're looking for a sign, here's your sign, right? That you see on the highway.
There it is. Perfect. No, I love that.
But you can be, I mean, Gary Keller says you can be anything in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
You can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years. It just takes the right amount of discipline and influence. And so I would say was a really big learning curve for me. And once we set that, I got into different conversations, different financial brackets, and that just really raised my level of thinking.
I love that. Well, you know that I think you're absolutely awesome. You're a dear friend of mine, and yeah, I look forward to the many years and this conversation again in another year, like what it would look like, what we're talking about, what we're seeing, what we're doing. And so you're very special to us here in the Olive household, and you guys, you and Matt are absolutely fabulous. So thank you for your friendship. And yeah, so have a great day. Anybody, if you're watching this, you can find Jordan. If you're in Dallas, you need to be using her to help you with all your real estate needs. I'll give the little tiny commercial there.
Thank you.
They're absolutely amazing. You're in great hands. So, all right, you have an amazing, beautiful day.
Thanks, you too.